My wife and my mother-in-law frequently conversed in their native language, so I recorded their audio, requested a translation, and discovered a shocking truth that changed everything. My wife and I got married 2 months ago. We both come from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. In her culture, it's common to live with one's parents. We had discussed the possibility of living with her parents after the wedding, but I wasn't very comfortable with the idea. I was born and raised in America. My parents moved here when they were in their 20s to pursue their dreams. When I turned 19, I moved out of their house, and they fully supported my decision. So, I mentioned to her that I didn't really like the idea of living with my in-laws. She told me it was a fundamental aspect of her culture. I told her I respected our cultural differences, but I wouldn't budge on this point. I wanted us to have our privacy, and visiting her apartment, I saw there wouldn't be enough space for all of us. At that moment, I imagined her parents lived with her. She gave that impression too. She told me she grew up around here. In the end, we reached a consensus, and she asked me to try it for a few months. If I didn't adjust, we could move. So, I agreed. We had a small wedding ceremony, but it was very beautiful. I moved into her apartment, and her family was extremely kind. I didn't notice anything amistad. She and her mother often spoke in their native language. I became curious. I asked her to teach me, but she refused, saying there was no need. I said I wanted to participate in their conversations too, but she kept refusing to teach me. Time went by and I took some online classes, but I was still at the very beginning. I could only understand a few phrases and isolated words. My wife and I both had jobs. It had been about a month and a half since we got married, and my mother-in-law kept telling her to do that. That was the only phrase I could pick up. When I looked at her, she would just give me a somewhat sheepish smile. I sensed something wasn't right. I asked a few questions, but she always dodged them, saying she'd tell me later. As the days went by, my mother-in-law became increasingly apprehensive about that. I tried to question her, but she wouldn't give me a clear answer either. I was getting fed up. We hadn't even gone on our honeymoon. I wanted to take an international trip, but she firmly refused, claiming she was busy with work or giving some similar excuse. One day, I was chatting with a coworker. She was from the same country as my wife, but I had never heard her speak her native language. I bluntly asked if she spoke the language, and she confirmed she did. I asked if she could help me translate a few phrases, and she agreed immediately. I knew it wasn't right, but I was going to record their conversations. I had been living with her for almost 2 months and couldn't stand being left out of the loop anymore. I was sure something was going on, and I was going to find out what it was. I simply couldn't believe what I was hearing. My coworker, with headphones on connected to the laptop, was translating the recordings I made of the secret conversations between my wife and my mother-in-law. Every revealed word made my heart ache a little more. These weren't simple, harmless chats about daily life or future plans. It was something much darker, something I could never have dreamed of. My wife and my mother-in-law were planning to use me. I was just an instrument for a purpose. Apparently, my mother-in-law was deep in debt, and my wife, despite having grown up here, maintained strong ties to her native culture. She was pressured to find a solution, and that solution was me. They needed someone to provide financial support, someone who could pay off the family's debts and ensure a comfortable life for them. I was the ideal candidate, a passionate and somewhat naive American, willing to do anything for the woman he loved. But it didn't stop there. There was more, much more. My mother-in-law was ill, something I never knew. She needed expensive treatment, and my wife agreed to marry me to ensure I would pay for everything. She appeared laughing in the recordings, mocking my naivety. My wife would say things like, "He's so easy to fool. He believes everything I say." And my mother-in-law would add, "You did well choosing him. He's a weakling, but he has money." I felt betrayed in a way I never imagined possible. Everything we had built together, all the moments we shared, all the promises we made to each other, were just one big lie. I was just a pawn in their game. And worst of all, I truly fell in love with her. I trusted her. I opened my heart and my life to her, and she used it all against me. I didn't know what to do. My first reaction was pure fury. I wanted to confront her immediately, throw her lies in her face, and show her I wasn't the fool she thought I was. But something inside me held me back. I needed to think clearly. I needed to plan my next move. If she was playing me for a fool, then I would play along, and I was going to play to win. In the following days, I acted as if nothing had happened. I continued to behave as if I were happy and calm. I started to show a growing interest in learning their language, just to make them wary. My wife seemed surprised but pleased with my new attitude. She had no idea I already knew the truth. Meanwhile, I began to plot my revenge. First, I had to protect my financial situation. I had put a good amount of money into a joint account with my wife, but now I knew I couldn't trust her anymore. Gradually, I started transferring the money to my personal account, making excuses about investments or unexpected expenses. She suspected nothing. Then I started gathering evidence. I recorded more conversations, took photos of documents, and even followed my wife on some of her outings. I discovered she was in contact with a lawyer, probably scheming how to leave me in the worst possible situation if I found out the truth. I also found out she had a secret bank account where she kept the money I gave her for household expenses. In time, I had everything I needed. It was time to act. One night, after dinner, I sat down with her in the living room. I was calm and determined. She seemed relaxed, with no idea what was coming. "We need to talk," I said, looking her straight in the eyes. She frowned but agreed. "Sure, what is it?" I took out my phone and started playing the recordings. Her expression changed instantly. She turned pale, and I saw the fear in her eyes. "What is this?" she asked, trying to maintain her composure. "It's you and your mother planning to use me," I replied firmly. "I know everything. I know about the debts, your mother's illness, the fact that you married me just for the money." She tried to deny it, but I continued. "There's no point in lying. I have proof of everything, recordings, documents, photos. I know you have a secret bank account. I know you were planning to leave me in a terrible position." She started to cry, but I wasn't moved. "You betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. You used my love and trust against me, and now you're going to pay for it." I explained to her that I had already spoken to a lawyer and was ready to take the case to court. I had all the necessary evidence to ensure that she and her mother wouldn't see another cent from me. I was prepared to expose their charade to all our friends and acquaintances. She begged, asking for my forgiveness, saying she was desperate and had no other choice. But I didn't want to hear any more excuses. I had been deceived, betrayed, and humiliated. And now it was my turn to take back control. In the following days, I moved into a hotel and filed for divorce. My lawyer assured me that I would be protected in every aspect, and I cut off all contact with her and her family. I also told the truth to our mutual friends, ensuring no one else would fall into their trap. It was a difficult period, but I knew I had made the right choice. I had freed myself from a toxic and manipulative relationship, and I could finally start over. Today, I look back and see this experience as a valuable lesson. I learned the importance of trusting my instincts and never doubting the power of truth. I also learned that, no matter how painful a betrayal may be, there is always a way to rise again and move forward. I watched her sit in front of me, sobbing, trying to convince me it was all a misunderstanding, but I felt nothing but contempt. Every tear seemed rehearsed, every sob empty. I wanted her to know how much she had lost everything and that she would never have control over me again. "You betrayed me," I said firmly, "and I will never forget. But now it's my turn." That night, before we went to bed, she tried to get close. She tried to act as if we were still a couple, but I pushed her away with a simple look. "Don't touch me," I whispered, and she cringed. We slept in the same bed, but that was the last time. I was determined to act the next day. Without saying a word, I called my lawyer and explained the whole situation. He was astonished by the level of manipulation and advised me on the next steps. I contacted the bank to block any transactions in the joint account that might still exist. I wasn't going to let a single penny fall into her or her mother's hands. I also transferred all my assets to a trust. This was the first step to ensure I would get out of this story without losing anything. During this period, I continued to pretend for several days. I acted as if everything was normal, even adding a touch of false affection to make her lower her guard. She seemed to be starting to believe I was considering forgiving her. But inside, I savored every detail of my plan. A week later, it all began. At work, I asked for a few days off to deal with personal matters and used that time to gather all the necessary documents to end our relationship. I hired private investigators to uncover even more details about the schemes she and her mother were running. I wanted to be sure nothing was left behind. And then the day came when I returned home earlier than usual, with all the papers in hand. She was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me, she smiled as if nothing had happened. "Hi, honey," she said. But the sound of those words made me boil inside. "We need to talk," I said, throwing the papers on the table. She looked at me confused, and I saw the exact moment the penny dropped. She started trembling, trying to grab the papers, but I pulled them back. "These are the divorce papers," I continued calmly, "and I suggest you sign them without trying to make excuses, because you have nowhere to run." She began to plead, with fake tears streaming down her face. "Please, listen to me. I love you. I only did this because I was desperate. My mother needed help." "Shut up," I interrupted coldly. "There's no love here. You never loved me. You used me, and now you're going to pay for it." She tried to argue, but I put my phone on the table and pressed play. The recordings started to play, each word exposing the plan she and her mother had concocted. I saw the panic grow in her as she heard her own voice talking about how easy I was to manipulate and how weak I was. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I continued, "and you knew that if I found out it would all fall apart. Well, here we are." She was silent for a moment before finally exploding. "And what do you want me to do now? Go away and let my mother die? Do you think you deserve someone better than me?" I laughed, a laugh full of bitterness. "It's not my job to save your mother, and it's certainly not my job to support both of you while you laugh at me behind my back." I stood up and took the papers. "I've already taken all necessary measures. You and your mother will not get anything from me. I've already informed the bank, the police, and my lawyer. Also, you have until the end of the week to get out of this apartment. It's in my name now." She was in shock, but I wasn't finished. "And one more thing. All our acquaintances, all your friends, will know who you really are. I'll make sure no one else falls into the same trap I did." That night, I packed my bags and went to a hotel. I didn't want to spend another second in that house. She called me dozens of times, but I blocked her number. My decision was made. In the following days, I finalized the divorce. My lawyer informed me that, with all the evidence I had gathered, she had no way to contest anything. During this period, I anonymously released the recordings on forums and social media, where she and her mother were known. The reactions were devastating for her. Her friends and relatives began to distance themselves, and rumors spread quickly. In the end, they found themselves alone, exactly as they deserved. Her mother had to sell what little she had left to pay off some of the debts, and my ex-wife tried everything to rebuild her life, but the damage was already done. No one trusted them anymore. As for me, I started from scratch. I moved to another city, bought a new apartment, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of relief. Looking back, I realized that the greatest revenge was reclaiming my life and letting them sink into the chaos they themselves created. They tried to destroy me, but in the end, they were destroyed by their own choices, and I moved on, stronger than ever.